beneath the twin suns of Calith Prime, where crystalline towers pierced violet skies and hoverbarges hummed through clouds of golden dust. Princess Liara stood alone in the royal garden, her green skin shimmering like sea glass under harsh light. Her twisted left leg, a birth defect that no Calithian technology could repair, marked her as broken, unworthy, a stain upon the imperial bloodline. The emperor, her father, had made his decree that morning. She would be sent to Earth, to a primitive farming settlement, exiled under the guise of cultural exchange. But what none of them knew was that this exile would become the greatest rebellion the galaxy had ever witnessed. Before we start, subscribe now so you don't miss more incredible stories like this one. Oh, and before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love hearing from you and always read every message. The transport pod descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star, its hull groaning against re-entry friction. Inside, Liara pressed her palm against the viewport, watching continents of blue and green replace the familiar purple horizons of home. No one had come to say goodbye. Not her 3 perfect sisters, not her brother who would inherit the throne she could never claim, and certainly not her father. The farmland stretched endlessly below, a patchwork of browns and golds under a single yellow sun. The pod settled with a gentle thud beside a modest farmhouse with peeling white paint and a sagging porch. Through the viewport she saw him, tall, weathered, with sandy brown hair catching the afternoon light. James Halloran wore simple clothes, faded denim and a work shirt rolled to the elbows. He stood at a respectful distance, hands in his pockets, waiting. When the hatch opened with a pneumatic hiss, Liara took a breath of earth air, heavy with moisture and the scent of growing things. She descended the ramp slowly, her left leg dragging, her hand gripping the rail. She wore the simple gray dress her father had commanded, nothing royal, nothing special, and her green skin seemed to absorb the sunlight. James watched her struggle down the ramp, and something in his expression shifted. Not pity. She had seen enough pity. This was different. Concern, perhaps, or simple human decency. "Miss Liara," he said, his voice low and steady like distant thunder, "welcome to Earth. Can I help you with that?" "I can manage," she replied, her accent carrying the musical lilt of Calithian vowels. "I'm sure you can," he said, "but sometimes we all need a hand. Nothing wrong with that." She paused, studying him. His eyes were gray-blue, like storm clouds over wheat fields, and they met hers without flinching, without sliding away to her leg. He simply looked at her, really looked, as if seeing a person rather than a problem. "Very well," she said quietly. He offered his arm rather than trying to lift her. She took it, and together they navigated the steps to solid ground. His arm was solid, warm, steady, so steady after months of trembling palace floors. "The house isn't much," James said, "but the guest room has a good view of the east field. Sunrises here are something special." "I'm sure it's adequate," Liara said, practiced royal dismissiveness automatic. "Your pod mentioned dietary restrictions. I talked to a xenobiologist at the university, had to drive 3 hours, but I wanted to get it right. Stocked up on plant-based options that should work. If I got anything wrong, we'll figure it out together." Liara stopped walking. In 7 months since her father announced the exile, no one had asked about her dietary needs. "You drove 3 hours?" she asked. "Well, yeah," he said, rubbing his neck. "Seemed important. Can't have you starving on my watch." But while she searched for words to respond, a sleek, black vehicle crested the hill beyond the north field, its engine purring with expensive precision. Liara's stomach clenched with familiar dread. Someone from the Calithian embassy was coming, and they never brought good news. The diplomatic transport settled on James's lawn with casual disregard for property. Ambassador Vex emerged, tall, perfectly proportioned, his green skin unmarred, his formal robes flowing with embedded microlights. He was everything Liara was not: whole, graceful, favored. "Princess Liara," Vex said, his voice technically respectful but dripping with disdain. "I see you've settled into your new circumstances." "Ambassador," Liara replied, straightening her spine. "I wasn't informed you would be visiting. A surprise inspection. Your father wishes to ensure Earth is accommodating your special needs." James stepped slightly forward, positioning himself at Liara's shoulder. "James Halloran," he said, extending his hand. "You must be from the princess's home world." Vex looked at the offered hand as if diseased, making no move to take it. "I am Ambassador Vex, third in line to the Obsidian Throne, military governor of the Outer Reaches, bearer of the Emperor's voice. And you are the farmer assigned to house the princess." "I prefer to think of myself as the person hosting the princess," James said, lowering his hand. "She's a guest, not a package." Vex's eyes narrowed. "How quaint. Tell me, farmer, has the princess been useful? Has she contributed to your agricultural endeavors? Or is she as useless here as she was in the palace?" The words hung like poison. Liara felt her breath catch, old wounds reopening. "That's an interesting question," James said, his voice level though something sharp entered his tone. "What makes a person useful?" Vex laughed like breaking glass. "A princess who cannot stand for ceremonies, cannot dance at state functions, cannot perform physical duties required of imperial bloodlines. What purpose does she serve?" "I'm authorized to administer a test," he continued, pulling a crystalline device from his robes. "Standard protocol for exiled royals. It measures physical capability, mental acuity, cultural retention, strategic thinking. The princess will either pass or confirm what we already know." Liara knew this test. She had failed it twice before. "And if I refuse?" she asked quietly. "Your stipend is revoked, citizenship questioned, exchange ended. You'd be returned to Calith and placed in the royal hospice." The hospice. A pretty name for a prison where broken princesses disappeared. "I'll take the test," Liara said. "Now hold on," James said. "She just arrived. She's exhausted, hasn't eaten properly, hasn't adjusted to Earth's gravity." "The test is standardized," Vex interrupted. "Besides, if the princess cannot adapt to basic environmental changes, that itself is valuable data." He activated the device, which began hovering at chest height, projecting rotating holographic symbols. "First challenge, physical endurance. Complete this path in under 2 minutes." The hologram showed a course through James's fields, over fences, through the irrigation ditch, up the hill near the barn. For someone with 2 functioning legs, difficult but possible. For Liara, designed to humiliate. "Begin," Vex said. The device counted down. 120 seconds. Holographic observers appeared. Vex had activated a live feed to the Calithian embassy. This was entertainment to them. No one believed she would even try. But the way James looked at her, with neither pity nor doubt, just steady certainty, made something shift inside her chest. And she realized this test wasn't measuring what Vex thought it was measuring at all. Liara stood at the starting point, breathing shallow, looking at the holographic course. The timer continued, 90 seconds remaining. The Calithian observers whispered, "She won't make it past the first obstacle. Why does Vex even bother? This is cruel." But James was watching Liara's face, seeing calculation behind her eyes, fingers twitching as if counting steps, measuring distances. She wasn't looking at the course like someone beaten by past failures. She was analyzing it. 70 seconds, the device announced. Liara moved, but not toward the first obstacle. Instead, she limped with deliberate speed to James's tool shed. Vex frowned. "What are you doing? That's not—" "You said complete the path," Liara called back, her voice stronger. "You didn't specify how." She emerged carrying a long wooden plank. The observer's whispers grew confused. Liara positioned the plank across the first fence, creating a bridge. She crossed carefully but efficiently, her bad leg dragging but her balance impeccable. She repositioned the plank for the irrigation ditch, using it again rather than trying to jump. 40 seconds. "This is cheating," an observer shouted. "Is it?" James asked Vex. "Your device said complete the path. It's measuring strategic thinking, isn't it?" "She's being strategic." Vex's jaw tightened, but he couldn't argue. For the hill, Liara changed tactics. She dropped the plank and used the fence line running parallel to the slope, pulling herself up hand over hand, using posts for leverage. Her arms trembled, but she moved with methodical efficiency. 20 seconds. The observers had gone silent. Vex's expression shifted from smug satisfaction to something harder. Liara reached the final marker with 4 seconds to spare, chest heaving, green skin glistening, but standing. "Physical challenge complete," the device announced, proceeding to cognitive assessment. The holographic interface displayed a complex, 3-dimensional puzzle, spatial reasoning involving rotating geometric shapes. Liara had failed this at 15. Shapes swimming before exhausted eyes while court tutors sighed. But something was different now. Maybe the adrenaline. Maybe James standing there radiating quiet confidence. Liara looked at the puzzle and saw simply a problem to solve. Her fingers moved through the holographic interface with practiced precision. James noticed she was solving it unconventionally, working from center outward instead of the traditional outside-in approach, more efficient though unorthodox. Cognitive assessment complete. Score 97th percentile. Someone gasped. Vex's expression could have curdled milk. "Cultural retention," he said sharply. Liara answered each question about Caelithian history, protocol, and tradition correctly, but also provided Earth equivalents, demonstrating not just retention but synthesis, bridging two cultures. Cultural retention complete. Score 94th percentile. The observers were stunned, silent. "Final phase," Vex said, something dangerous in his voice, "strategic thinking and moral judgment." The device projected a scenario, complex diplomatic crisis involving resource allocation, political alliances, ethical considerations. The kind of problem given to someone in line for the throne. And just when everyone thought they understood what was happening, Liara proposed a solution that made even Vex step back in surprise. She hadn't just answered the question. She had reframed it entirely. The holographic scenario hung in the air. 3-star systems, resource scarcity, competing territorial claims. Liara's solution was radical, mutual vulnerability. You would have the Caelithian Empire share technology with less advanced civilizations? Vex asked, voice sharp. Make ourselves vulnerable by elevating potential rivals? I would propose we create partners instead of subjects, Liara replied steadily. The scenario shows resource scarcity, but scarcity exists only if we maintain isolated systems, share agricultural technology, energy solutions, medical advances. All 3 systems benefit. Resources multiply rather than divide. That's not how power works, Princess. It's not how power has worked, but perhaps that's why we keep facing these same crises generation after generation. Strategic assessment complete, the device announced. Analysis. Unconventional approach demonstrates high-level systems thinking, cross-cultural synthesis, innovative problem-solving. Score 99th percentile. Overall evaluation exceptional across all categories. Absolute silence followed. Vex stared at the device. Impossible. She failed this test twice before. There must be calibration errors. The device is functioning correctly. A new voice interrupted. A 5th holographic window opened, displaying an elderly Caelithian woman with deep jade skin and ancient eyes. The Imperial Advisor, Keeper of Records. Advisor Cress, Vex said, suddenly deferential. I wasn't aware. I monitor all tests of Imperial bloodlines, she replied. Princess Liara, do you know why you failed before? Liara hesitated, old shame rising. Because I'm defective. No, child. You failed because the tests were administered in the Grand Palace, in rooms designed to amplify traditional Caelithian excellence. The architecture itself was biased. Your mind works differently. Not worse, different. The palace suppressed your natural patterns while enhancing your siblings. She paused. Your mother understood this. Before she died, she left instructions with me. Instructions I was forbidden to reveal while you remained on Caelith. But now you've left Imperial soil, I can execute her final wishes. A new projection appeared showing a document sealed with the late Empress's cipher. Your mother wasn't originally from the Imperial bloodline. She was from the fringe colonies, where cooperation and adaptation were survival skills. She brought those values to the palace. But after her death, the old guard reasserted control, and you, inheriting her thinking, became a target. Tears stung Liara's eyes. Your mother's will stipulates that upon your 23rd birthday, or successful completion of the Imperial evaluation, whichever came first, you inherit her estate. Not ceremonial property, but her real legacy. A network of agricultural research stations, medical facilities, educational outposts across 17 worlds. An empire of care rather than conquest. She wanted you to continue that work. Why didn't Father tell me? Because he didn't know. Your mother created this outside official imperial structure using personal wealth and fringe colony connections. She knew if palace nobility discovered it, they'd seize or destroy it. So she hid it, named me executor, and waited for you to prove yourself. Not by palace standards, but by standards that actually matter. Compassion, innovation, the courage to think differently. When you sent Liara to Earth, James said, it wasn't exile. It was liberation, Cress finished. Away from the palace's influence, she could finally show her true capabilities. Her father thought he was disposing of embarrassment. He was actually setting a future leader free. It wasn't just knowledge, it was legacy. And suddenly everyone understood this moment would reshape the Empire's future. This is absurd, Vex protested. She's still physically defective. She cannot lead military campaigns, perhaps, Cress interrupted. But the Empire doesn't need more campaigns. We need someone who can build alliances instead of demanding submission. Someone who understands true power comes from wisdom to cooperate. She turned to Liara. Your mother's network has been waiting. The question is, are you ready? Liara looked at James, this farmer who had shown her more respect in hours than the palace had in 23 years. She looked at wheat fields golden in evening light, at the modest house with honest simplicity. I'm ready, but I have one condition. The network my mother built, I want to expand it to Earth, include this world in our alliance, and I want James Halloran as my partner in that expansion. Ma'am, James said slowly, I'm just a farmer. You researched my dietary needs. You defended me when you just met me. You saw me as a person rather than a problem. That's the wisdom my mother valued. That's the partner I need. Advisor Cress, Vex said desperately, you cannot simply bestow a colonial network upon an untested princess. The Emperor must be consulted. I have been watching, a new voice said, deep and resonant. The largest holographic window expanded to show Emperor Theron himself, Liara's father, looking older than she remembered, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Father, Liara whispered. The Emperor looked at her, really looked, perhaps for the first time. I watched this entire evaluation, and Advisor Cress's revelations about your mother's legacy. Your mother tried to tell me before she died that the palace was wrong about you, that our tests measured the wrong things. But I didn't listen. I was young, arrogant, and after she was gone, the old family's reasserted influence. They convinced me your disability was weakness, that keeping you in succession would undermine the empire. And I believed them. So you sent me away. Ambassador Vex's family argued your presence was destabilizing, that nobles were using your disability to question the bloodline. They offered a solution: send you to Earth, remove you from succession quietly, and whispers would stop. They wouldn't have stopped, Cress said. There's always another weakness to exploit. Vex's family has been positioning for a coup for 20 years. Advisor Cress sent me recordings 3 hours ago. The Emperor continued. Also, 30 years of your family's private communications, Ambassador. Your intentions are very clear. You've been plotting to undermine the imperial family, create crises justifying military intervention, position yourself as savior. You're removed from position immediately. Your holdings are under review. You will be investigated for treason. You cannot, Vex shouted. I am third in line. Your family has nothing, the Emperor said coldly. You were third only because previous emperors found you useful. I do not. Guards appeared in the holographic window. Vex's hand moved toward his belt. Don't, James said quietly. You've already lost. Don't make it worse. A human advising me, Vex spat. You're primitives. We could teach you about failure, James said steadily. Real failure. When crops die and children go hungry, when you rebuild after losing everything. Survival isn't about perfection, it's resilience. Liara's disability doesn't make her weak. It's made her stronger than anyone in your palace could understand. Guards restrained Vex as his window closed. The Emperor turned back to Liara. I cannot undo the years I've stolen, but I offer you a choice. Return to Calith. Take your place in succession. Help me rebuild an empire your mother would be proud of. Or accept your mother's legacy. Build her network into something greater. Create the alternative power structure we desperately need, one based on cooperation. Do it from Earth if you choose, beyond palace influence, free to think according to your mother's vision. Liara looked at James, then at the holographic faces watching, some hopeful, some fearful, all waiting. I choose Earth, she said firmly. I choose my mother's vision, and I choose to prove that empires built on compassion are stronger than those built on conquest. The Emperor nodded slowly, something like pride flickering in his ancient eyes. Then go build something worthy of her, daughter. Show us all what we've been too blind to see. And as they walked away toward the farmhouse, the twin suns of Calith setting in one sky and Earth's single sun rising in another, no one dared question the broken princess again. For they finally understood what they had witnessed. Not disability, but destiny. 3 months passed like water flowing into new channels, reshaping the landscape. Liara's mother's network, 17 worlds of research stations, medical facilities, and educational outposts, formally welcomed Earth as its 18th member. James's modest farm became the headquarters for Earth's integration, its fields transformed into experimental grounds where Calithian agricultural technology merged with human farming wisdom. The transformation was subtle but profound. James taught Liara about Earth's seasons, about soil composition and weather patterns, about the particular stubbornness of winter wheat. She taught him about photosynthesis enhancement, about genetic markers that could make crops drought-resistant without harmful modification, about sustainable practices her mother's scientists had perfected across diverse worlds. They worked side by side, her bad leg no longer a limitation, but simply part of who she was. James built her a modified workstation in the greenhouse, elevated platforms where she could analyze samples without standing for hours, ergonomic tools that played to her strengths rather than highlighting her limitations. News spread across both worlds. On Calith, the old nobility watched nervously as more fringe colony worlds pledged support to Liara's network. Young Calithians, tired of the Empire's military focus, began applying to work at her research stations. On Earth, scientists and farmers alike requested partnerships, recognizing that this alliance offered solutions to problems that had seemed insurmountable: climate change, food scarcity, medical challenges. Ambassador Vex's trial had revealed something unexpected. His family's coup attempt had been larger than anyone suspected, involving 12 noble houses and 3 military commanders. But the conspiracy collapsed when Liara's evaluation results spread through the Empire. Suddenly, the broken princess represented something the old guard couldn't fight: proof that their standards were obsolete, that strength came in forms they'd refused to recognize. Emperor Theron began reforms, reluctantly at first, then with growing conviction as he saw the positive response. He established a new council, including representatives from the fringe colonies. He mandated accessibility reviews of all imperial buildings and systems. He publicly apologized to his daughter in a speech that was broadcast across 47 worlds. But Liara didn't return to the palace. She stayed on Earth, in the farmhouse with peeling paint that James had slowly renovated, adding Calithian comfort technology while preserving its honest simplicity. She stayed because here, finally, she could breathe without the weight of palace expectations crushing her chest. And she stayed because of James. One evening, as Earth's sun painted the wheat fields gold and Liara worked in the greenhouse analyzing soil samples, James brought her chamomile tea, something he'd discovered helped her adjust to Earth's heavier gravity. "There's a delegation coming tomorrow," he said, settling onto the bench beside her workstation. "From 3 different worlds. They want to see how the partnership's working." "Let them see," Liara said, smiling. "We have nothing to hide. Your father wants to visit next month. In person, not holographically." She paused, setting down her analysis tool. "What did you tell him?" "That he's welcome. That this is your home now, and guests are welcome in your home. But that he comes as your father, not as emperor. No diplomatic entourage, no formal protocols, just a father visiting his daughter." Liara turned to look at James fully. This human who had understood from the first moment what the palace had never grasped: that she didn't need fixing, she needed respect. That her value wasn't measured by physical perfection, but by the wisdom, compassion, and innovation she brought to every challenge. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for seeing me when no one else did." "I just saw what was there," he replied. "Everything else was the galaxy being blind." Through the greenhouse windows, they could see the experimental fields where Calithian and Earth crops grew side by side, cross-pollinating in ways that created unexpected resilience. In the distance, the research center they were building rose against the darkening sky, a structure designed by architects from 7 different worlds, incorporating accessibility from the foundation up, a physical manifestation of the new alliance. Liara thought about her mother, about the legacy hidden in fringe colony shadows, about the network of care that had waited patiently for the right moment to emerge. She thought about the palace she'd left behind and the empire that was slowly, painfully, learning to change. But mostly she thought about the future, about the thousands of other broken children across the galaxy who were watching her story, seeing someone like them succeeding, understanding that limitations imposed by others were not the same as actual limitations. About the young Calithians applying to her research stations, eager to build rather than conquer. About the alliance growing stronger every day, proving that cooperation created more lasting power than domination ever could. "Do you ever regret it?" James asked. "Giving up the throne, staying here instead of returning to Calith?" Liara looked at the fields, at the greenhouse, at this human who had driven 3 hours to research her dietary needs before they'd even met. She thought about mornings watching Earth's single sun rise, about afternoons working side by side solving problems that mattered, about evenings discussing everything from agricultural science to philosophy, while crickets sang in the darkness beyond the porch. "No," she said, "I didn't give up a throne. I claimed something better, the freedom to build the world I believe in, with someone who sees me as I actually am." And as the stars emerged overhead, Earth's constellation so different from Caelith's, yet equally beautiful, James reached for her hand, and she took it, and together they sat in comfortable silence, two architects of a new kind of empire, one built not on conquest, but on the radical idea that every person, regardless of their body, their origin, or their differences, carried within them the potential to change the galaxy. In a universe that had long measured worth by narrow standards, sometimes a single act of seeing clearly was enough to shift the stars themselves. And sometimes the person sent away in shame returned as a leader who would reshape the future, not despite her differences but because of them, because they had taught her to question what others accepted, to imagine what others couldn't see, to build bridges where others saw only divides. The broken princess had become the Empire's salvation, and the galaxy would never be the same.